Welcome to Break Through the Ordinary. You know you desire a more impactful, connected, extraordinary life. That's why we are here to bring you stories from transformational leaders, healers, and entrepreneurs who found themselves trapped in the ordinary and are now living their most extraordinary life because of a breakthrough moment. Together, we will provide world-class tips and tools enabling you to live a life purposely, aligning your heart and soul. Because we believe no one should be imprisoned by their past. We are your hosts, Mark and Claudine Chamante, a sibling duo who transformed from an ordinary life of disconnection and loneliness to a life of purpose, love, and passion. We use our expertise, our trainings, and experience to inspire others to live an extraordinary life so they can create intimate, thriving relationships that ripple throughout the world. This podcast is only the tip of the iceberg of what is possible. If you want to dive deeper into our systems and break through the endless patterns of settling for crumbs, contact us at thebtopodcast@gmail.com.
Today on our episode of Break Through the Ordinary, we have a guest, Lourdes Starshower, who is an advanced certified Tantra educator, sacred sexuality coach, shamanic minister, and breathwork coach, clairvoyant. She also is a Dakini Tantra Practitioner certification program. She's a catalyst for people to become conscious around their sexuality, and there's much more to you. We would be here all day listing all your attributes and successes, and she works out of Florida, but does work internationally and festivals and workshops and all that good stuff and juicy stuff.
Yes.
To help couples, people, individuals, their sexuality, loving relationships and all that. So welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, we've looked forward to this topic,
Yes.
this conversation with you. Right?
Most people's favorite topic, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm going to tell you, honestly, this is a topic that I'm stepping into in my 50s. It's not been a favorite topic of mine. And I've had the opportunity and gift to work with you in small retreats and in small groups. But for me, it's a bigger, new space and skin that I'm taking on, where I know my brother has had a place to play for much longer than I have.
Yeah. I'm like the big brother, and I get to watch my sister going into a whole new development of herself. It's just amazing.
Yes.
It's great.
Yes.
Oh, how exciting.
Yes.
Well, even more honored and excited to be here with you and see what transpires for you.
Same here. We start off with some questions that we always ask since we're about to break through the ordinary. And so my first question to you is, Lourdes, what was that moment of one of your breakthroughs that really had you look at your life and go, yeah, no, this is too ordinary. I'm ordained for an extraordinary life. If you could share with our audience.
Yeah, so I was a divorced single mom with very little, living in a small apartment with 2 bedrooms, and my 2 daughters, who were aged 3 and 12 when I got divorced, were sharing a bedroom. And all 3 of our offices were in the living room. So there was a child's painting table, another child's little computer table, and my desk with my computer. And I was already starting to teach Tantra, but I had not studied yet how to become a practitioner and how to heal people with tantric touch and other tantric modalities. And a new friend that I had met recently through a Tantra workshop came into town and asked me if he and his buddy could spend the night. And I said, sure, if you don't mind sleeping in my kids' bedroom. My kids were at their dad's that night. And so we engaged in some conversation about Tantra. And I told him, I don't touch people's genitals. I just teach Tantra. And it's all about empowerment and spiritual growth and all of these things. And I had sort of a little bit of I would say there was a stigma around genital touch that had been handed to me from my first teacher training, where I wasn't allowed to. And so he said, I don't understand what the problem is. I actually went to a sex worker, and she gave me the most powerful spiritual experience of my life. And it was such an awakening that I decided that I needed to study Tantra. So I was super intrigued. And I said, can you teach me? And he said, yes. And so he proceeded to teach me how to do a tantric massage on his body and then demonstrate on my body how he does a tantric massage on women. And afterwards, he said, you are so gifted that I'm going to offer you this training if you can pay half. So he was about to go to a training, and it was an 11-day training, and I came up with the money. My sister lent me some of it. I borrowed some, and I went. And in that training, there was a tantric massage in the anus. So we call it a root healing to heal all of the issues that are blocking your root chakra. I had never had pleasure in my anus. I had never allowed it. I was always saying no when a man wanted to come near my anus with even his finger. And this healing was so incredibly powerful that afterwards, the guy who had done it on me literally carried me like a baby back to my cabin because I was sobbing, and I had had a major breakthrough on the biggest root chakra issue, which was my father dying when I was 10 months old. So I came back to Florida after this training, which was held in California, and I looked around at my tiny little 2-bedroom apartment, and I said, this doesn't work anymore. And I looked around and I was appalled at the horrible feng shui. You can't even call it feng shui. It was a total mess. And also the level of apartment, which was not the way I had been accustomed to living prior to my divorce. And within 3 months, I completely shifted it. So after saying, this is absolutely this doesn't do for me anymore, I started working. Of course, I had been trained, so I knew what to do and how to work. And in 3 months, I had a beautiful condo rented, and the condo came with beautiful furniture. So I was able to get rid of all my old dilapidated furniture. And there, my business really picked up even more, as well as my relationships. So it was a profound moment for me. And I have to thank the healings that I went through. And this is the reason why I really believe in the healing of the physical body, the energetic body, the emotional body, the spiritual body. And that's something that you really can't do with talk therapy alone.
You know, my encouragement is for people to really keep an open mind because not everybody has this discussion. But it's really important to start opening up and really talking about sexuality and all the different possibilities of healing and pleasure. And it's not taught anywhere. And we come with all these beliefs and restrictions and social and parenting and all this around that. So I love that you're bringing this conversation and that you're part of the healing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, right, we often talk mind, body, spirit. And, right, there's also the domain of sexuality. There's your energies. But society, I think, has it stay as an outliner. It's like, well, we're not comfortable. We're still in a very old paradigm, particularly in the United States.
If we even go to spirit, or even mind, or separating, or even body, I would say. And so, yeah, you're right. There are so many layers. And I look at healing as physical, energetic, neurological, psychological, emotional, and subconscious, as well as spiritual. So I work on all of these dimensions.
I love it.
Appreciate that.
So we're talking about this. So what do you think people need to have? What kind of breakthrough do they need to have this extraordinary life or to step into another level of themselves?
I believe that the breakthrough that people need is whatever their next step is. So maybe somebody is locked and lost in an abusive relationship. Or maybe somebody is addicted to the television or to their phones or if some substance. Maybe they're addicted to pornography and they have no idea the detriment that it is causing on their brain. Maybe they are in a 9-to-5, really boring job that they decided to do because it was going to make a good living, but now they hate it. And so when I talk to people about where is their breakthrough, it's always about where are you stuck? Where are you feeling that if something were to be tweaked, your life would dramatically change? And so the breakthrough is always the next step.
Yeah, I like that.
I'd like to take this one step further. So, in conscious spiritual relationships, or just say conscious relationships and connection, how to reach that through the mechanism of spirituality and sexuality. If you could speak into that a bit, I think it's not a conversation often had, and I think you're the perfect person to lead us in there.
So just to be clear, what I'm hearing you say is that how do you make a relationship become more conscious or create a conscious relationship
Deepen a conscious relationship that has both spirituality, sexuality, but a consciousness to it.
Yeah. The first step is to yourself become more conscious, more spiritually aligned, and heal your sexual relationship with yourself. And so if I have a couple, for instance, let's say somebody's already in a relationship, I want to support both partners in healing whatever is in the way within their childhood wounding or their previous relationship wounding or the cultural wounding, and support them in becoming conscious in their sexuality to have self-love instead of jerking off. And this bringing this consciousness into their lovemaking, and also to open their ability to move their sexual energy through their whole body by opening their heart and opening all of their energy centers to bring their orgasm through the body that will further open the heart, the consciousness, which is the third eye, the pineal gland in the center of the brain, as well as the crown. And that awakens our spirituality. And so if I have a couple, I'm supporting both of them on this individual path. And at the same time, I'm supporting the two of them together in how do you connect in a conscious way. And so rather than grabbing your partner or groping your partner, and sometimes that's fine if there's a lot of passion already and they grab each other and they rip off their clothes. But if that becomes their daily reality, then they're never slowing down. And this slowing down supports the real meeting of the heart and the meeting of touch. And so if you were to touch somebody anywhere on their body, whether it's on what we call in Tantra the wand of light, or the lingam, or the vajra, or the thunderbolt, with consciousness and all of these possibilities of how you could touch it instead of this. And with the yoni, this is my yoni here, instead of like going right for the clitoris, like really touching all of these areas, or licking in either case, with presence and gentleness and slowness that supports both people in having a heightened experience of every millisecond of the time that they're together. And so bringing consciousness, deeply connected touch also supports energetic connection. And I also teach them how to connect energetically. So how to breathe with each other through their hearts in a sort of a circular pattern, and how to connect to their own heart before they ever touch their partner. So let's say my partner is about to come in the door and we have a date to have sex. So I might take a moment and drop into my heart and do a big breath that opens my heart, so that when I meet them, I'm not just meeting them with the horniness of lust from my sacral chakra, but I'm meeting them with my full being. And when they walk in the door, they can feel that. They can feel my heart enveloping them. They can feel my presence and my consciousness. And that shifts everything. And so if I'm working with an individual, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to support them in raising the bar on their own self-love, their self-care, and their self-pleasure so that they can draw in a higher partner, as well as support them in how to meet this partner in a highly conscious, sexually and spiritual way.
I really want to reiterate what you said about the open heart, because I think it's really the way we would love to live in that open heart space. You know, I was heartbroken in a relationship, and it made me realize that I want to live wide open. I want to live in that heart space no matter what, because the truth is we will survive. And I know a lot of us are afraid of it or whatever, but that you can live that way and it's okay. And there's some beauty in it because there's a richness like you're sharing about living that way. And I want to just say, as you were speaking, I was thinking, there's people like you, there's teachers. I also do some teaching, that this is not a strange thing. So I'm really, it's like an invitation to people. Like there's places to learn this stuff that's safe and that are possibilities and can change your life if you go with curiosity, openness, and realize it's not as scary as it sounds. It's not really, I mean, I think we have all this fear around it, but it's not when you're in a safe place and you're held and you're, you know, as somebody like yourself creates such a beautiful space that possibilities are endless. And it's such a beautiful exploration of connection with yourself, connection with another, your own sexuality. And, you know, I love it. You know, I'll share, this is vulnerable, but I remember my first prostate. I mean, and you don't realize how many feelings I mean, my first reaction was I was in rage. I mean, and then came a vulnerability. And even on the last retreat we were on, one of the men, I was in a men's group on a Tantra weekend with everybody. And he really talked about, as a man, understanding a woman being penetrated when you have anything done with your anus, like you understand on a level that vulnerability. There's a vulnerability in a woman opening to that space. I just wanted to say that because that came up. I wanted to share, because you were talking about open heart and stuff, about de-armoring. It's a word that's been used for years. Maybe you could explain and share about de-armoring.
I would love to. And I want to clarify something. So I'm going to backtrack to your conversation just a tiny bit. So when I had my root healing, I just want to make sure it's clear with our audience, it was with a finger. And that's how we do tantric healing. So to make sure there's no penetration with a penis inside of a woman's body in order to heal her anus. And there's no penetration with a penis inside a man's body in order to heal his body either. So I just wanted to put that out there because sometimes men might hear, it helps me to be penetrated in order for me to understand penetrating a woman. And so just to put that to rest.
Yes.
And I also want to say something juicy about the penetration of the prostate with a finger. A man has a G spot or a sacred spot right in front of his prostate. And many men can open to really high levels of orgasmic pleasure through their prostate. And yes, the first time it might be awkward, it might be uncomfortable. It shouldn't be physically painful if the practitioner is using really good lube, and they should have a finger cot, which is like a condom for the finger or a glove. And going in really slowly and holding space for the heart of the man receiving the healing or the woman receiving the healing, men can gently open to having pleasure and even orgasms in their prostate, as well as a blended orgasm, which means that there's pleasure with one hand on the wand of light, and while a finger in the other hand is gently, very slowly, with very precise technique, which we teach in my training. And then the healing takes place and the potential for pleasure. So thank you for letting me go back to that, because I have had people think when I said healing in the anus that it meant penetration with a penis. Now remind me, what was the other question, that the question you actually asked me?
About de-armoring. There's been a lot said about it.
Yeah. So de-armoring happens on an energetic, physiological, emotional, neurological, and psychological level. And I can't point out enough how de-armoring is so multifaceted, because I can create armor because I'm 12 years old and there is a man who is coming towards me, lusting after me, and he grabs me. And even if he doesn't touch my breast or my genitals or my behind, I immediately will shut down my yoni because it's a reflective response. Men and women can create armoring through cultural shutdown. So I've seen this a lot in my practice, where any gender will be made to feel shame for their sexuality by their church, their parents, their school. And so armoring can happen on many levels. It can happen because you've asked somebody out and they said no. And you ask someone else out and they said no. And now it starts to be uncomfortable that you've got this libido. And so it's like the sky is the limit on why armoring happens. So that's the first thing. How we do de-armoring. Let's take the lingam, or the wand of light. And
We have a
oh,
puppy
Sorry,
on.
but she's been
oh, my
very
heart.
active
Yeah,
tonight.
I think this topic's got her all fired up.
I have a dog who looks similar, and she's upstairs with my teenager so that she can't bark if someone comes to the door. So I have a big heart for dogs. And so, so de-armoring on the wand of light. It's going to be hard to show you with one hand, but there's a Taoist technique that I teach that has to do with touching the balls in ways that you wouldn't think of for pleasure. So you're actually spreading them and you're putting a finger up, but it doesn't hurt. And the lingam gets stretched when it's flaccid, and it gets twisted, and it feels pleasurable. All of these techniques, bring it up into a little bouquet, and all of these techniques are de-armoring, releasing the tension, the tightness, the armor that can be physical, but it can also be energetic, neurological, or psychological, or emotional. And with a woman, let's take the yoni. I'm actually going to pull out my models. So I stopped showing you with my hand because this will be more valuable. With the woman's body, I'm not going to de-armor the clitoris right away. I'm going to, first of all, address the entire body and the heart and her eyes and her soul. And same with a man, although I missed that part, but it would be there. And then I'm going to fully arouse the outer lips. And there are a lot of different ways that I would do that. And then the perineal sponge, which is down here. It's a very small space, but it goes deep inside the body. And eventually the inner lips, which I don't call menorah because some women's inner lips are really long. And there's enough stigma about women supposed to look like porn models and who have often been surgically altered. So I call these the outer lips and the inner lips. And then eventually getting to the clitoris. And ideally the hood has opened by then. And then the de-armoring is partially energetic. I don't ever have to press hard anywhere. The de-armoring is going to be energetic, gentle touch coming from my heart. Eventually I'm going to come inside of the yoni and do what's called the clock, which means I de-armor all the way around the clock slowly, one step at a time, asking the woman to tell me if she's feeling any pain or numbness and supporting the healing of that until eventually I come to the clitoris and then the cervix in the back. And so it's very technique oriented. It's also very presence and heart oriented. And I'm going to be calling in guidance for myself as well as my client. And with a man, remembering now that I have this model, I just acquired a flaccid lingam, which is really cool because I can show so much more on it. So even though that felt kind of like weird, maybe what I was showing before, the lingam twists and you can stretch it. And all of this actually feels pleasurable to men, even though it might seem so strange. And stretching the balls and stretching the whole thing together, it's a deeply honoring practice. And both the deeply honoring of the entire being, the heart, the psyche, the soul, before I even get to the body. And it releases the tension, the numbness, the stress. De-armoring can support women in feeling pleasure, in opening to many different types of orgasm, including clitoral orgasm, G-spot orgasm, cervical orgasm, amrita or female ejaculate, which doesn't typically squirt. It only squirts if a woman has been trained or has trained herself to do that. It typically comes out as a flow or maybe a big flow or maybe a gush, but this is only trained. And it can also support the awakening of breastgasms, of heartgasms, of crygasms and laughgasms and whole body orgasms. And so the de-armoring is one part of the process on the yoni, but there's also work that is simultaneously taking place on the rest of the body to really support the healing. On the man, what can happen is if a man has premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction, it can support him in learning to last as long as he wants, learning to derive naturally, organically an erection, as well as be able to maintain that erection as long as he wants, have whole body orgasms just like a woman can, and eventually learn ejaculatory choice, which means not only can he last as long as he wants, he can choose when to ejaculate based on his partner being fully satisfied and happy, as well as based on, does he even want to ejaculate in this particular lovemaking session? Or does he maybe just want to ejaculate once a week or once a month? There are many benefits to that, to learning how to have ejaculatory choice, including multiple whole body orgasms in the same lovemaking session, just like a woman can open to having.
Wow. I'm assuming, I'm just going to ask, is there practices that you suggest that continue that evolution and exploratory expansion even outside of sessions? Are there habits and rituals that you would suggest?
Yeah, so I don't ever offer a yoni or a linga massage without first teaching them how to self-pleasure. And I also teach a breath practice that is what supports them in being able to continue to expand their ability to have whole body orgasms at home. And I have a video that's free available on my YouTube channel, Lourdes Starshower, called Self-Love and Self-Pleasure. It's for all genders. And I go through a little bit of what I showed you here on that video. I use my hand or my fingers to show some technique, but it's really about the whole body. And it's about how do you make love to yourself as though you were making love to a partner, or in the way that you would desire a partner to make love to you. And then it does include pleasuring the genitals in this beautiful, holistic, loving way, and learning how to touch differently from this and from this. And the reason for that is whether or not I'm addicted to porn, if I only do this to my yoni or I only use a vibrator, I am actually desensitizing, taking away the sensitivity to pleasure. And I'm mindless. And the same thing with this. Most men who do this, they're not present. You could have your mind somewhere else. In fact, most men do. They're either going to fantasize about somebody or they're going to be watching some sort of media or looking at pictures or something. All of the focus is there. So imagine that I'm watching porn and I'm watching the screen. All of my focus is there. If it's porn, I'm having a cortisol and adrenaline response to the increased aggression on the screen. And I am having an orgasm connected to adrenaline and cortisol, and in increasing amounts, because what happens is people get addicted to having more and more and needing more and more aggression in their porn in order to actually get off. So all the energy's over there. It's connected to adrenaline and cortisol. What happens when I have a partner? So women can be addicted to porn too. So let's say I'm a woman, I'm addicted to porn. I have a date with someone, and after a couple of dates, we decide we're going to have sex. What's going to keep me from going into this robotic response, needing adrenaline? I just was with a man who said he could only keep an erection if he's having really hard and fast, if he's giving really hard and fast pleasure to a woman. And I was like, well, doesn't work for me. We're not sexually compatible. And I've had lots of people come to me and say they are no longer drawn to a real round, whole human being. The person not only has to be a stick figure with lots of muscles, but also has to be kind of robotic, or they're not attracted to them. And this might not even be at the level of conscious perception. It might be a subconscious idea. And so it's really detrimental to be watching something else and putting all your energy there and then getting off like this. I probably gave you way more answer than you wanted. But in any case, the key is they learn to self-love, and they learn to self-pleasure, and they learn to direct all of their presence and all of their energy inward, so that now it's just like a meditation practice. Now I'm learning to be in this state where when the beloved comes, if you're single, then you can already meet them in that place, because that's how you've been connected to yourself. And it's natural and organic, and it's how the being wants to flow.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that's my saying. Become the beloved you seek.
Yes. Yeah, the first time I ever taught a class, it was like the beta test years ago. I had it was the first one of the things was, how do you want to be touched? Because some people like that deep muscle touch, some like the soft, but it was just like, how do you want to be touched? I mean, just to learn, because everybody likes it different. Everybody likes touch differently, so just learning about yourself. And it changes also. You got to be open to flexibility, because as you do change. What did you say?
I said, yeah, and learn how to communicate that.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
Yes.
And how to perceive it, how to listen. Yes. When somebody else says, this is what I need. And you brought up a really good point, Mark, when you said, and it can change. Sometimes we think that we only love this really firm touch. And it isn't until somebody with really deep presence, this is called sensate touch. This is one of the types of massages that we give in Tantra. If somebody with deep presence touches you really slowly, and all of a sudden, all of your nerve endings are opening up, and you're realizing, oh my God, soft can feel good too. Or if you've only had soft, and all of a sudden somebody's touching you really soft and they pinch you and you like it.
Yes.
And then you realize, well, yes. So maybe I do have a little bit of kink inside of me, and maybe I do like a little bit of strong touch or a hickey.
That's a whole nother avenue we can go down. Yes.
Yeah, I will share, as I've evolved I'm honest, I'm in my 50s, and I took the sexual blueprint. And for me, I will say I'm a good lover. I've had good lovers, nothing, my earth-shattering. And for me to learn that kink is actually a part of my sexual blueprint. And I'm not saying the tests are definite, but when I explored it, there is. And even the touch, like you said, even the pinch, the unexpected this, and the strong touch, the gentle touch, or metallic touch, cold touch. It adds such a depth of reception that I was not aware of. And I think there's so much exploratory that people have a birthright to have, right? It's that permission to give to yourself and to find that safe community. But that safety starts within self. And, I guess right before we had met at the Tantra Festival, it was the opportunity to meet with an intimacy coach and to even start to understand it. And I think shows like, Love, Sex, and Goop have really started to open up a conversation, just like 50 Shades of Grey did years ago. It's allowing people somewhere to talk about it versus this shame-driven, I'm reading a book, but don't show me the cover of what you're reading and all that. It's like, no, we get to know that there is options. There is exploratory opportunities and pleasures that are beyond the ones that we're fed by society.
Absolutely.
And I hope that's the permission that people also get from listening to you tonight when they put this on as their podcast and they're like, oh, what don't I know? Because we don't know what we don't know. We only know what we know, and that's not everything. It's 10% of the pie of life.
And I want to add to that, you know what? I've been in this field for years and I've worked, on individuals and I still feel like a beginner. I honestly feel like a beginner. I feel like there's so much that I haven't played in, even though I've played so much. People know me, know I'm a very open, but I still feel like a beginner. And it's like an endless journey of learning and finding out who you are and what you are and surprises that come along the way. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
Yes.
I think it's
Liberation.
important in the world. Yeah. Very important.
Thank you.
Yes.
I honor your beginner's mind. There are many avenues where I'm a beginner also, even though I've been doing this for many years and I have a school to train people. But I know that there are places where I'm a beginner and where I'm willing to say, I'm going to have a teacher for this. And I'm going to be learning something new and come to it without the ego of I know everything, because then learning absolutely stops.
It does.
Yeah. And there's too much to explore to ever say I know everything. It's just not a possibility. Not for me anyway. And there's the nerd in me too, that little nerd.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Is there any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience in this beautiful journey of life, however you live it and however you breathe it?
The word that bubbles up is permission. And I think it's like giving yourself permission to explore. And so, like Claudine said, take the erotic blueprint test and find out. And this isn't something that I offer, I'm not certified in it, but I think it's a great body of work that Jaya has created. And find out what is showing up for me there that maybe I didn't know about. And also, being willing to explore. There's so many options online to explore what I might be drawn to. Like just hearing tonight, did Claudine say that kink has to do with metals and cold and all of these different possibilities? And we talked about pinching and we talked about hickeys. There are so many other possibilities that have to do with kink. And so kink doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a dungeon and you're tied up and you have to have a safe word, although it could. But there are all these anything that is sensation play can also be considered kink. And so to explore, what am I drawn to? And even let's say you're drawn to somebody of the same sex and you've always sort of shut the door on that. Can you give yourself permission to explore it a little bit? So it's like permission zone of what is it that you're drawn to? What is it that would be the place where when you think about it, it lights up your heart and it feels juicy and exciting? Because that's your edge. That's where you want to go.
Yeah. Allow yourself to even look at that. Yeah. Wonderful.
Oh, that's a beautiful opening and offering that you gave us tonight. I thank you. for making the time and being here and sharing your demonstrations and your wisdoms.
Yes.
It's worth watching this one on YouTube, people.
Yes, your knowledge and her demonstration. I mean, I know we could speak for hours on this kind of stuff, but we appreciate your time and energy.
My pleasure.
And your knowledge, deep knowledge.
Definitely.
And even, I've just met you on that weekend, but to see the way you live it, like you're living in this very open, fun, loving, sensual way of being, just wide open. So it's beautiful. Thank you for listening to this episode. Our intention is that you take these tools to break through any limitation holding you back from living your extraordinary life. If you would like to learn more about our group and individual coaching, contact us at thebtopodcast@gmail.com. Please support us and the podcast by following us and leaving a rating or review. To catch all the latest, follow us at the BTO Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.